welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about feminine and masculine energy expression. So first, let's talk about what that means to me. So I originally, just a while ago, and this is super vulnerable and personal, was struggling with my gender expression. So as being, a lesbian, and I don't mean to make this about my orientation entirely, because I know that has a stereotypical burden, right? Where like lesbian is associated with stud, is associated with this woman trying to emulate man, when really it's just who you date, who you have sex with, who you potentially marry. So, aside from all of those stereotypical burdens and assumptions, for me personally, it's just sometimes debating with myself and what some people might call compulsory heteronormativity, where even though you're in a relationship that's same sex, you still try to mirror the appearances outwardly that you see in heteronormative relationships. Let that either be the attire of you and your partner or the gender roles that take place in your households. So for me personally, I didn't really have that debacle when I was in a relationship with the girl I was in a relationship with. But after that relationship, I definitely had that struggle of just like trying to figure that out. One, because I didn't really come to terms with my gender expression until I was with that person. So that opened up an entirely new box, just Pandora box of just all the things that I had not known about myself. And I totally thank that person for that experience, because I learned so much more about my gender expression, who I am, what I like, what I want. But the only thing that wasn't really pieced together for me, even in that relationship, is my relationship with myself in regards to my orientation, but also in regards to the way in which I express my style, because of the relationship I share with my orientation, right? So I'm one of those people that's always kind of found it harder to express my orientation specifically with my style, or to express my style with my orientation. So it's always like the or and the and, right? It's like there's never this perfect balance. It's like in between. So I've always just found myself coming from a more feminine standpoint with things, which I completely, entirely enjoy and love and adore, because I think something about being feminine and also having the orientation I do, just that contradiction on a stereotypical level, is something that's very powerful, and it's a really strong movement that I've decided to start in my own life, and just like in my own decisions to present the way that I do, but also be attracted to the things that I am. So that's where it gets really complicated, because it's like, if I'm attracted to this, then I need to look like this, because even the person I was with looks like this, and they were attracted to this, and that's how I knew that they were also attracted to me. So what's my attraction? Because they looked how I stereotypically perceived that orientation to be, or was it because they presented themselves in a way that I find myself attracted to? So am I just attracted to masculinity regardless of that person's physical attributes, or am I just attracted to the energy of masculinity aside from attire? So then that opens up this whole other conversation when you talk about that with your relationship with yourself. Am I attracted to the way that I look in the mirror when I don't appear to be masculine, when I don't appear to be overtly feminine? Do I like that in between? And as of recently, no, I do not. I don't think everybody can do androgynous. I think some people can pull it off because it fits how they feel about their orientation and their relationship with themselves and their identity and just their style, outside of all of these complex factors influencing their identity. I just think from a style standpoint, there's a lot of people who kind of dip in between because they enjoy the versatility that allows them with that. But for me personally, it's really hard to like dip into that part of my style and not connect it to my orientation. And that's why I'm saying, like, it's that and or it's that or. Like, am I styling myself this way in addition to my orientation, or am I styling myself this way because I like the appearance of the illusion to the orientation? Like, it's just very it could be very mentally exhausting to go back and forth with yourself in that regard. So I'm like, I don't have to go back and forth with myself. I can just ask how everybody else feels about that. How does that impact your life? How does that impact your way of moving throughout this world, right? Like, I think so often we find ourselves fitting ourselves in these boxes, in these gender roles that we really aren't even aware of. But we're not really taking note of the gender energies that are taking place here. And I'm not going to call them gender energies. I'm just going to call them energies that are taking place. Because when I think about my original attraction to the person that I was last with, the girl I was last with, it was not the way that she dressed. It was not the way that she moved, in a space when I, was there and I wasn't. No, it wasn't that at all. It was her energy. It was the way she spoke to me. It was the way she would hold the door for me. It was all of these almost like gentleman-like practices that reeked of masculinity that I found myself attracted to, because coming from never having been with a girl, or honestly never really having a serious relationship up until I came out, it was a really big deal for me to welcome in somebody who had that much experience, at least from my standpoint, but also to welcome in somebody who understood themselves on that deeper level. And I think that's why a lot of women in my community, and I know we're veering off a little bit, but we'll get back on topic, but a lot of women in my community find that attractive. I'm gonna make a video about that too. A lot of us find that attractive because we're like, one, it's bold to present yourself as being masculine in terms of your presentation, not your energy, because there's some masculine women who are very feminine. See, this is where it gets really complicated. And then also to present yourself in this world where that's not accepted, not whatever. So you're already an anomaly, being lesbian, being black, being female, and you add on the confidence it takes to present yourself in this almost like gentlemanly kind of manner, this whatever. It's inspiring, but it's also really hot. It is. So it's so funny because there are people ask, oh, why do you like women who are this and the whatever and stuff? Women look better in suits. Women who have masculine energy genuinely just bring something else to the table. They do. They really, really do. So when we talk about energies, I was doing some research because I'm like, hey, I'm not crazy. I have met people who give off an energy opposite their gender role in society. When we're talking about gender, although I believe it's a social construct, hot take, don't come for me, girl. I'll turn off the comment section. But I'm just saying, like, although I believe it's a social construct, we're just using it in this instance to describe the way in which society is structured. So, with that being said, without further ado, I read a Goop article. And what was this Goop article about? It was about Chinese historical ways of categorizing not just gender expression, but like your overall feminine and masculine percentages, but also your energies. So, with that being said, without further ado, I introduce to you the 4 types of masculine and feminine energies. So we have greater yin, lesser yang, and greater yang. Now, I know a lot of people are familiar with the terms yin and yang and how they balance each other out, but a lot of people probably don't even think about the varied relationship that they share with one another. It's not just yin, it's not just yang, just like it's not just masculine, it's not just feminine. That's how we're leaving this kind of blurry, muddy part for androgyny and for all of our beautiful people who find themselves in between, or who just like to kind of dabble in a stylistic feature in both, this space to really just explore and to just kind of think about it in a very expansive way. Just open up your mind just a little bit. Just open your mind. It doesn't have to be this, very strict systematic experience. You can just take what you learn from this and apply it to your life experience, but also learn from it and observe yourself. Because I've done a lot of that self-observation and my frustration with looking at my outfits and feeling like I'm not really as connected to my masculine side, but also feeling very mentally connected to my masculine side. So we're gonna get into that. But for our first one, it's called Greater Yin, if you remember. So the website describes this is about as feminine as you can get. This energy is associated with stillness, nighttime, intuition, creativity, feelings, and senses. So when I think about this specific type of energy, I think of the person who, and I say the person because energy doesn't have a gender. Energy does not have a gender, okay? When I think about this, I think about how I've met some men, met some women who don't feel at all in touch with a masculine energy. They just feel very, and I'm using very stereotypical categorizations here, very nurturing. They feel very soft, very warm, very submissive. They don't at all feel like they value the kind of more concrete pieces of our mentalities than somebody who's more so on the masculine end of things. So kind of picture somebody in your mind who's like that, who's very much so free and just like open and just warm and inviting and welcoming. And not to say you can't be those things when you're masculine, but in this sense, somebody who's not at all really in touch with that kind of almost like edgy about their business, want to be in control, kind of dominant side of themselves. Picture that in your mind, and let's move on to the next one. So for our next one, it's called Lesser Yin, and the website describes it like this. The lesser yin is slightly more fluid. Composition, and here's our percentages. Keep note of this, take notes. Composition ranges from 60% to 80% yin and 20% to 40% yang energy. So that distribution is pretty wide, ain't it? You're 20% to 40% yang energy, 60% to 80% yin. I feel like for people who are like lesser yin, which in my humble opinion for a majority of women, I think that's kind of the average. I've met women who can really fall on either side. And like I said, it's a spectrum. We're not all 100% of one thing. But for those few people who just appear to be macho masculine, super feminine, I think it's okay to make a little bit more room for the people who really need to dabble in, a mix of the two. Because I don't think it's 100% okay to be 100% of one thing. So I think it's fair to say that the average is probably more lesser yin when it comes to people who are more, and I say people again because it's not women, because energy does not have a gender, but people who are more yin, I think it's more, in my humble opinion, I think I've encountered more people. I'm not going to say it's more because that's not necessarily the standard that's been proven. But I'm just going to say that I think that it's more common for people to be a little lesser yin. But like I said, think about those people in your mind, really visualize it, and even think about yourself, because I got a little something at the end for you guys that I want you to try out. So here we go. Our third one is lesser yang, and it's described as, now we're moving into dominant yang, masculine energy. So here's where we're starting to tiptoe in to what people may somehow correlate with men, right? That in control, dominant, about your business, not too much thought about the emotional ramifications of things, not very, floaty and daydreamy, but more so intellectual, cerebral, analytical, think about those sorts of things. So we've got 60 to 80% yang. And this type is more extroverted. So now we have attributes, active and dominant, with a tendency to move through life at a faster pace. So like I said, kind of like, here's the schedule, here's the week, here's what we're doing for the day. We're moving through life. We're not really sitting and daydreaming and looking at the, clouds with animals in them. We're more so just like moving through life, getting our shit done, doing what we need to do. So that kind of energy personally for me really resonates because I'm very extroverted, I'm very high energy, and I'm very, very dominant. I'm gonna go for what I want and I'm gonna get it. And I'm gonna do what I need to do. And I'm also the type of person that, like, if I have a problem with somebody, I'm gonna bring it to you. I'm not gonna talk to 50 other people about it. And like I said, like, I think it's also good to have that firsthand perspective, which is also why I wanted to make this video, because I felt myself leaning towards one specifically. And it's not to say that that's problematic, because like I said, I think everybody's a homogenous, whatever, mix of it all. But I do say that I think it's good to have a perspective of somebody who kind of leans into a little bit of both, like, or a little bit of one or the other, so you can kind of get that first-hand perspective. So for me, for sure, I just feel like I definitely take the lead on a lot of things, like being chosen for leadership positions pretty much like right off the bat when I enter a lot of spaces and just different things like that. And I don't mean that as a flex, and even if it was one, it wouldn't matter, but I'm just meaning that in the sense that, like, I'm confident in myself and I don't really feel the need to prove that to you. Like, I'm good. I got me, sis. You gotta have your back. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that's where a lot of that energy comes from. And it's not so much just like, and remember, this is lesser yang, so it's not so much this like dismissive, I'm not in touch at all with the fluidity, with the creativity, with the imaginative side, with the daydreaming, with any of that. But it's more so like my style of doing that is like, what's the plan to be imaginative? What's the plan for where this creativity is gonna go? Like, for me, when I knew I was gonna start a YouTube channel, I needed to have the camera in order, the applications, where I was gonna get the non-copyrighted music. I needed the lighting, I needed all of these things. Like, I had all of these elements kind of lined up prior to, so that I knew that, like, over time I could build the content, build the creativity, but I had to plan first, and like, obviously your content grows, the quality of it changes over time, but for the most part, especially for me, I just kind of felt like, we're doing this and we're doing this now. But I talked about it months and months and months in advance, so it was definitely a plan. But to say that I had all the equipment and all the all the tools and all the answers is wrong. But to say that, like, I had a plan and an idea about what I was going to be doing is accurate. So when we look at this next type here, it's called greater yang. So this would be what you would see as the macho masculine, machismo, very just like in your face, like whatever, right? So greater yang, this is a masculine energy as it gets. This is as masculine energy as it gets, okay? Greater yang energy is assertive, goal-oriented, accomplished, and dominant. This energy is associated with daytime, activity, vision, and power. So before we get into our next part here, which is just as expansive as this part here, but something that's really important to mention here is, as you're thinking about people in your mind who kind of align with these energy types, not only subtracting the gender from the energy, but also subtracting any biases. So I feel like a lot of us, we encounter these people who are in your face super masculine, in your face super feminine, and they almost act as though they don't freaking poop or sit on a toilet because they're so intact with their feminine side and they're afraid to almost show any sign of imperfection. So I feel like it's good that we're making sure we're looking at these people from a more of an observational standpoint. Like, why are they this way? Let's question that. Let's unpack that, actually. But let's not look at them like, ugh, gross, those people, ew, disgusting. Because there's something to really be learned from this. Because even as they were describing it, it's only really a percentage. But also, as I like to always say, perception is reality. So we perceive these people to be one way, but they may perceive themselves to be something else. Like, I remember when I was going through, taking quizzes, researching, and all of my results were coming up as masculine, and I told my mom that, she was like, girl, but I thought she was super feminine. Like, it's like, other people have this perception of us, right? And like, in my mind, I'm like this androgynous, like getting whatever art student. Like, I'm not really in my mind as feminine as a lot of people perceive me to be. But like my mom tells me all the time, she's like, the way you hold up your hand when you're cooking, how you're wearing a cute outfit, you always like, you know, kick up your leg whenever you're wearing a cute heel, or like you're just very, very feminine, or your voice gets a little higher when you're excited, how you switch between topics when you're happy. Like I was on the phone with my childhood best friend and he's like, yeah, that's adorable. Like, you know, and it's just like, we don't realize all these things that kind of make us adored and make us like cute and funny or feminine or masculine to other people. You know, sometimes it's the way we talk, how we dress, how we handle ourselves. But a lot of that is not associated with gender at all. At all. Because I could be a guy and I promise you I'm gonna give the same energy. I promise. So it's just like, I just love that about it because it's so ambiguous. Like there's absolutely no standards, no rules. You have your categorizations, whatever be the Chinese categorizations, just energy conversations. Like it's really just up in the wind. Like you get to determine all of that just by perception alone. There is no concrete answer to it at all. It's all just in your head. It's your idea of what that looks like. To this website, to this person who wrote this, you know, this woman who's a herbalist, and she's doing whatever, you know, she wrote this with her perceptions in mind, and also probably what a lot of those Chinese records and things say. But, you know, from our perspective, super masculine might not look super dominant. It may just look like you have your shit together. You might just be in control of your life. You have the calendar, you're regimented, you know what you're doing, you know where you're going. You don't really take very much time to stand by and, like I said, look out the window and daydream and look at the clouds because you also have a schedule and you're like, I ain't got enough time to do that. So it's just like, we all have this different perception of it, but that doesn't mean that anything is right or wrong or that our biases still can't get in the way. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, you know, these relationships with others in your life that you're observing some of these energies from. So for the next segment here, I really just want to get into how to express yourself, right? Like, I think we spend so much time as people, especially as women, like really trying to figure out our personal styles and how we express ourselves. And like in the beginning, even my spiel on being lesbian and trying to navigate that, right? Like being feminine and being attracted to femininity or being attracted to masculinity or whatever in our community, and trying to figure out how do I dress to attract what I like. It can be strenuous, it can be a lot, and I'm just so glad I can finally say it because it's hard, you know what I mean? And I don't think I hear a lot of people saying that, like, I really put in so much time and effort just to look like my orientation because I don't want to be mistaken for being something else. And then you put in all that time and effort, and then what you're attracted to doesn't present the way that you do. So then you're like, oh, I need to dress this way all the time so then that I can attract what I then am attracted to. And then it's a lot. It's a lot. It is. But it's the conversation, and this is what we're getting on. So just understand that, you know, look, girl, I'm in it with you. Like, I'm trying to figure it out too. I don't have the rule book. I don't have all the clues and all the answers, but I do have some insight. So for this next part, we're gonna get into style steps. So I'm not at all personal stylist. So I'm not gonna go in here and be like, wear a turtleneck, wear this, wear that. Girl, I don't know. You're gonna have to figure that part out yourself, honey. That's why we have Pinterest. Okay, hook yourself up. But, and also for the guys out there for sure, but as far as expression goes, I'm just gonna say this, and that's my thing is, stop dressing because you're a specific gender. And I know that's gonna F a lot of people up, and it's gonna make a lot of people upset, because they're gonna be like, but gender controls, and it's not a social construct, and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I'm sharing my perception of reality. And if you don't agree with it, that's up to you. But I'm not here for that. We're in an inviting space, it's a welcoming space, and you need to be open to what it is that I have to say if you clicked on this video. So here's what I have to say. And what I have to say is, you don't have to be so stereotypically aligned with your gender archetype. You know what I mean? Like, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I need to be feminine. Doesn't mean I need to go downstairs and, start a plan for having a nuclear family with a husband, or in my case, a wife and kids, and start washing the dishes and breaking my back scrubbing the wood floors. That's not me, sis. I know that's not me. I'm very career driven. I'm very in control of the circumstances that are happening in my life. I'm very, let's plan it, let's schedule it, let's do it. I'm very about my business. Don't get me wrong, I got my shit together. So I'm not gonna be the type to go daydream and look at the clouds for hours or smoke weed and drift into space, into this psychedelic experience. That's not for me. I'm very about my business. I like to be aware, I like to be cognizant, I like to be alive, awake, here, alert. So, when it comes to my style expression, it's actually very interesting because that doesn't match my energy at all. My style expression is very laid back, it's very urban, it's very different flannel pieces, I wear loafers, I'm very free with that. So if I were to aim all of my kind of dominant energy into my style expression, those two wouldn't really merge beautifully, and it wouldn't really be an attractive look for me, because that contradiction leaves a little bit of space for people who are interested in me on a friendship, romantic level to be like, I want to know more about you. Because why do these two contradict one another? Why are these two different? And how can I learn to find a balance, to find safety in myself so that I don't feel the need to correlate my personality with my style, or correlate my gender with my style, or my orientation with my style. My style is my style. If I'm gonna look good, I'm gonna look good. And it has nothing to do with if I went to the thrift store, if I went to Macy's or Dillard's, or if I'm in a relationship or not, or if I'm black or white or not. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of people, we have this perception of what it means to dress a certain way because of who we are and all these little pieces of our identity. I'm not saying that your identity shouldn't influence any of that at all, but I'm just saying relinquish some of those burdens, because it's not always necessary. Sometimes you could just wear a shirt to be wearing a shirt. Sometimes you could just not be wearing a bra to be not wearing a bra. Sometimes you could just be doing things that don't necessarily have to align with some sort of specific standards set for you by society, just so that you can be free and so you can be liberated in your self-expression. Which brings me to my next point here, which is sometimes it's okay to dabble in both, right? I think we have this fear, especially as women, and no, actually, especially as men, because women you'll see in the blazers, in the vests, with the cute pants sets. I mean, look at women like Zendaya, Tiana Taylor, they really just dabble in both of those realms, and we're just seeing it become more of a commonality now. And I even found myself thinking the other day, is queer fashion just really normalized? And then I thought to myself, it's not queer fashion to wear blazer sets and to have cute pants sets and really mix them up, or to wear your hair a certain way, or to wear certain shoes or whatever. And I really thought for a while that, you're trying to communicate a message about your orientation when you dress like that. That's not necessarily true. Not everybody's trying to communicate a message about their orientation because they're dressed a certain way. Sometimes people are just communicating a message about how comfortable they are in their sexual orientation, but also about how comfortable they are with themselves. Because if you know that you're a feminine straight woman, if you're wearing a suit, if you doing whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter, because you're confident in orientation enough that you know that that's not going to be called into question. And even if it is, you're fine with that because you're confident in your orientation and you're confident in your identity. So it's just kind of the same thing with race, gender, sex, whatever. Whatever you're confident in, you don't necessarily feel the need to put that on display. So that's important too. But also, if you do want to put it on display, you need to be confident and hold that shit down too. You know what I mean? So it's just dabbling in both is fine, especially for men, all the straight macho men out there who are I'm never gonna wear a shirt with no sleeves, or a little boot with a little heel, or this or that or the other. Okay, fine, but you are limiting yourself in terms of your fashion sense. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that, because you don't dabble in androgyny, you're not, you're missing out on this great experience. But to some extent, you are missing out, because it's you're not experiencing the alternative to what your gender role is. And I just think that I'm not saying that because you're masculine that you have to go all the way to the extreme of wearing a dress, pulling a RuPaul stunt, joining Drag Race. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying put a little boot on it, do a little belt with it. Yeah. I was just saying, like, you can change it up a little bit. Like, you don't always have to wear a freaking suit. It's not to say that you need to start wearing a skirt and some pantyhose. You know, if you're a guy, if you don't want to express yourself that way. But I'm saying is like, it's okay to dabble in both because it teaches you something about yourself and your identity that really nobody else can screw with. Because if you know how you are and you have a greater sense of your gender expression, that translates in all areas of your life. And I think, especially for me, especially for people in the LGBTQ community, people in the Black community, people in marginalized communities, our style has made a larger impact on the way that we move throughout this world because it expresses so much more about us and our culture and our identity than it does for people who don't understand what it's like to be fighting in your existence. But that's another like conversation. But other than that, it's just like if I decide to wear a shirt that says trans lives matter, that says something like a political movement. But then again, it's also expressing like my beliefs, and it's coming from a standpoint of like, I don't give a damn what you think about what this shirt says, but this shirt says my truth. Shirt says something about my identity, my open-mindedness, my ability to be that person, that safe space for other people. So it's just kind of like, I like that ability to just switch it up. Like sometimes I want to make a political statement with a shirt. Sometimes I just want to dress like I go to the thrift store every other day because I do. Sometimes I want to look like I stepped off the freaking runway because I do, girl. You know, so it's just like that look of off the runway or from the thrift store or from Kmart. Like, it should not be varied because of my gender. It shouldn't be tainted because of my race, and it shouldn't be tainted because of my orientation either. Not to say that it's a bad thing if it is, but I'm just saying it shouldn't have to be that way. So my last little piece of advice here, girl, is it's okay to change your definition of masculine and feminine if it doesn't fit your bodily comfortability. Like, if my definition of masculine, let's say I was a gay Black male and I wasn't a gay Black female, if my definition of masculinity was to be very masculine and to not really showcase the stereotypical version of what it means to be gay and male, then I would have to be okay with the fact that sometimes people would assume that I'd be straight. So when you're securing yourself and you're securing your identity, you can change the definition. You can reinvent yourself, and everybody else can be left behind in the dust because it's not going to make a difference about how you feel about yourself. So that's on period. So I can dress as feminine as I want to now, almost as like a power statement, because the fact that you don't know I'm gay is not my problem. But the fact that I know I am lets me have the freedom to wear whatever the hell I want without your approval, without anybody else's acceptance, because it's not about appeasing other people or proving a point to others when you dress the way that you do. So like when I was talking about like the attractiveness that is associated with studs, they're not trying to prove a point to anybody. They're dressing like that for themselves. They feel a connection to their masculine side, to the masculine energy that resonates within them. And some of them don't even have that masculine energy, but just connect to that style-wise. In terms of the comfort, in terms of the accessibility of masculine clothes, because we all know sometimes the boys' clothes are just cuter, because they freaking are. And just connected to that ability to be binary, to not be so fixated with the binaries and gender, all of that in terms of their physical presentation. That's freaking hot. That's a power statement. You know why it's a power statement? Because it's individualistic and it doesn't align with what society tells you you need to do or how you need to look or how you need to present and how you need to act. It's just, this is how I look, this is how I present, this is how I'm gonna act, and this is how I'm gonna do what I do. So if you have to change up the definition that society has given you, that your parents have given you, that other people have assigned you because of your gender, because of your race, because of your orientation, fine, you change it up, girl. You change it up. Because in the end of the day, you need to be comfortable in what you're wearing. You need to be comfortable in how you look. You need to be comfortable in your energy, representation, also display, and style. So, before we end the video, I do want to mention that I am going to post the psychcentral.com quizzes gender role test in the comments below. It's a very short quiz. It's actually one that I feel like is a bit more legit, okay? Don't take one of those ratchet ones. Take the one I'm leaving down in the comment section. Take your opportunity to really just explore a little bit. And maybe you do take some of those ratchet quizzes, but learn something from it. Think about it. Rewire your mind a little bit. Be more open. Be a hippie and just open up your thoughts and feelings to new experiences and opportunities. With love, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this video. And honestly, y'all, let's get it up to 480 subscribers. I think we can do it. We just need one more person, y'all. I've been on YouTube Studio. We got this. We can do this. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching.